You know what's really great? The person that, this is now bonus content too, about the autism thing. The person that's inspiring a lot of this content, she keeps saying neurotypical, like, wrong. Because I guess she trying to say, like, normal people. She's also trying to say neurotypical. But what she says is something that's actually very true about what sort of she is. She says neuronormative. And yes, I would describe her as neurotypinormative. Sort of, she behaves and reacts as though the neurotypical way of expressing oneself is the correct way, and anybody outside of that needs to adapt to that. And that's what they do. That's what they say. And sometimes the worst is when you're trying to be constructive, and so let's say you meet someone, and you want to anticipate or avoid some misunderstandings. And so, you express that you're frustrated that often people, misinterpret your intentions. They attribute these negative intentions to you because they're like triggered by what you said. And anyway, and so it's very frustrating. And if they're feeling particularly neurotypinormative, they'll say, maybe they'll say it in a mean way, maybe they'll say it in a way where they're just trying to be helpful and it's just incredibly insulting. They'll say, and have you ever considered that if so many people are interpreting you that way, that that you might be the problem? And then, then you can maybe, I don't know, if you're me, what I am going to start saying is, well, I won't go this far, but the truth is, I don't know what I would say. Normally what I say is, yes, for years and years and years, I thought that I was the problem before realizing that actually there are certain interpretive mechanisms that are very prevalent in our species, and there are erroneous interpretive mechanisms shared by many people, and I trigger those mechanisms. But sometimes, right, or before I started recording this, I was tempted to be like, yeah. During that time, I thought the only way for the people around me to be happy was for me to die. I just took it for granted that I was the problem, that I was doing something wrong. It's wild, right? Like, if they knew how much I had thought that, my behavior was just wrong, just objectively wrong. And I was even like, what? That was why I did that? Those were my intentions? Because I wanted to put you down? Because I wanted to... What? That's wild. Okay, I had no idea. Oh, yeah. I listened to people. I listened. And so you're probably, if you're like me, you might experience a moment of desperation when someone says, have you ever considered that maybe you're the problem? What can I say? Just tell them you have. And then maybe at this point, walk away, bro. Because the only way that conversation is going to work is if they assume that you have good intentions in this conversation, that you're not a fucking idiot who their whole life everybody's been like, well, not everybody, but too many people have been like, oh, you're terrible, you're rude or whatever. And then, and the whole time you're just like, oh man, that's so strange. But I'm never going to wonder whether I'm the problem. But if they assume that you're that kind of a moron, you really just walk away, bro. And also, who the fuck are they? You've spent all this time knowing that you're different, trying to cope, trying to adapt, trying to understand how your mind works, trying to understand how their mind works, how to please their minds. And they've gone their whole lives, you know, of course adapting other people in certain ways, but not in the fundamental and in the nuanced ways that you've been forced to try to adapt. And they haven't had to think about what it means to be polite or what bothers them and what doesn't. They haven't needed to think about any of that. And so if you're having a conversation with this person who has this much experience with someone being autistic or ADHD, you know, on that social axis, and who just has not had to analyze humans as much as you have had to, if they come at you with that arrogance, like, oh, I hear you, yeah, socializing is hard, you know, it's just really important to be nice to people, to say shit. So I'm exporting this bonus content too, but I just have to add something for you. So it's an example of humanese, and I think this is like, for instance, something that a person, a neurotypical, would not know to advise an ADHD autistic person to do. Alright, so here's the interaction. So I was asked to trim the hedges. And being ADHD and on the spectrum, I love really, really clear instructions. She, being neurotypical, does not like giving clear instructions. It was already difficult enough for her to ask me to do it, even though she 100% has the right to. So I said, okay, like she said, for example, and then realized that it didn't need to be cut because it was actually just a broken branch that was just hanging there. But I was happy that I was about to get an example. Okay, that's not going to work. But so can you give me an example? And she goes, well, I think that, you know, you see what I see. And I go, okay, well, no, I went to that. Then I said, oh, okay, so you... Because I actually hadn't understood... This was in French. I hadn't actually understood the term trim in French. So then I understood. And she was like, yeah, see? I knew you could see what I see, and, you know, I knew you understood. So, that was a little bit annoying. I trimmed the hedges. She comes by. She says, wow, great job. Oh, you trimmed on top. Well, okay, I guess we can just trim all the hedges then. I said, I thought you asked me to trim the hedges. She said, yeah, but I was just talking about on the side. I think it's really pretty, the stuff on top. I said, me too. Shit. Shame you didn't give me an example. She says to me, because, you know, all the trimmings are on the ground, in the grass. Because there only is grass. And so the bushes are in the grass, so the trimmings are in the grass, and in this driveway, this grass driveway, they don't have a vehicle, so. And anyway, so she says to me, in humanese, she says to me, hey, could you pick up the trimmings and put them into a bag. Into the bags that we use for the trimmings and stuff. But it was in humanese. So here's what she said. She said, you know the gray I don't know, it's not a wheelbarrow, but I'll just call it a wheelbarrow. You know the gray wheelbarrow? I go, yeah. She goes, okay, well, that's what we use, you know, to put the trimmings in. We put them in there. So I translate out loud. I go, okay, you want me to pick up the trimmings? Okay. And this is the part that I really love. And I'm hoping you can just imagine it, because playing, since this is a one-man show here. Oh, I could edit it. But anyway, or maybe I'll do that. But, so, she says, you know the green, or the gray, wheelbarrow thing? Yeah. Well, that's what we use, to collect the trimmings. We put them in there. Okay. So you want me to pick up the trimmings? Okay. Yeah, to put them in the wheelbarrow. And it was like muttered as well. It was just so perfect that like I translated and she detranslated it, right? There was no problem with her asking me to pick up the trimmings, right? I wouldn't have thought to do that because look. But absolutely, I'm happy to do that. Love that idea. And then, so I'm gonna collect the trimmings and do what, needs to be done with them. But when I say collect the trimmings, she adds, it was like she was finishing my sentence. Yeah, to put them in the gray wheelbarrow. It reduces the task, like verbally, like nominally, by saying, oh, hey. It's almost like, it makes no sense. But the brain's dumb. So a brain could. So I don't know, it softens it. In humanese, you have to soften everything, right? And sometimes that involves straight up lying, right? And so if someone says to you, okay, you want me to pick them up, then you feel compelled to add, yeah, to put them in the wheelbarrow. And then there's like a pause, and she goes, and so so then what we do is from there, we put the trimmings into a black bag for the gardening stuff. I'm like, okay. I hope that was clear, because I loved that interaction. I loved that moment of detranslation. I hated it, but it was such a perfect example. It couldn't just be, yeah, I want you to pick up the things, and you can use the gray thing to take them over there or something, and then put them in a bag. But she said, yeah, collect them, to put them into that. And then what we do, and also there was she refused to use any language with me, like to say, you do this, blah, blah. She stayed with, so this is what, so then we use that to do that, blah, blah, blah. And it's those subtle things that, as a socially not typical person, it's those things that you would need to learn. They didn't have to learn those things. They're already compelled by them. So it's just a really silly task, isn't it? To try to... And also, it feels terribly uncomfortable for us, right? When there's like distance between reality and what's being spoken. So if you're neuroatypical, you know what I'm talking about. Or maybe, especially if you're autistic or ADHD, I think. It hurts. It literally hurts. And it takes so much effort to try to maintain both things in the mind. And to try to go back and forth. And for what? For what? For what? you can't ask someone to do something. You have to say, oh, I wonder whether we should do this. Or you have to go do it and then just be mad when they didn't stop you and do it themselves, All right. I'm having doubts about the whole detranslation thing, because I do hear what you hear, that it could just be that she's saying, no, but it logically doesn't make any sense. Does it? I'm not collecting them to put them in the gray thing. I'm in fact going to use the gray thing to collect them, right? I'm going to pick up whatever next to the gray thing, move the gray thing, put in whatever, right? That's all part of the act of collecting them. I don't know. And then the other thing is that, and also it's even the part at the beginning, the gray wheelbarrow? That question, so you have to know, I do know the gray wheelbarrow, because I used the gray wheelbarrow in order to empty the water from this vehicle. So I was making trips back and forth. In fact, her husband even repaired it for me. So I'm very familiar with the gray wheelbarrow. But it just felt, her brain just rejected. So her brain comes up with the idea of saying, oh, hey, and then can you collect them afterwards? You can use the gray wheelbarrow and then put them into a black bag. Her brain was like, whoa, her brain responded to that part of the brain that produced that, goes, whoa, what are we, some kind of a bitch? Hell no. First of all, a real gentle establishment of the existence of this gray wheelbarrow. Okay? Now everything's smooth, we understand each other, the gray wheelbarrow exists. Don't say anything about now the person you're talking to, just say, hey, by the way, typically, we use that when we're collecting the leaves. And the person says, oh, okay, you want me to collect the leaves? And then, let me know what you think. Yo, I'm sorry. Okay, one more in here, because here's another tip. And the point is not for you to actually learn these tips. Because even the ones that I know, it's so hard to use them all, to be quick with them. Another thing for when you're expressing something, if you want something, you have to find a reason that the other person wants it, and say, do you want that? And if someone says that to you, hey, for instance, do you, would it be, let's say someone's in my home, they're cold or something, then they, speaking humanese, would say, do you want all right, I'll just give you an example of my mom from the other day. Neo was up front, my mom was also up front, and she said, do you think that Neo should be in the back or lying down or something like that? Or do you want Neo to sit down? Something like that. Oh yeah, that's what it was. So Neo's like this. You see me, bro? He's like this. And she's like, do you want Neo to, or his paws weren't up. His paws were on the ground. He was just trying to see outside, so it's like that. She said, do you want Neo to sit down? I was like, no. Because I forgot I was supposed to understand that she wants Neo to sit down. So then a few minutes later, maybe, I don't remember what happened, but I think I asked something. And anyway, her response was, I just want Neo to sit down before I have an asthma attack. Oh, okay. Right. So it's both ways. If you want something, you just, you use their technique if you want to try hard for no good reason and never actually succeed at adapting. Use their technique of sort of reframing it. And then also you have to remember to understand that when they are talking to you, And just use, when you're confused, like, why would they think that I would want that? Or like, why, like, no, blah, blah, blah. When you have that moment of confusion, you would have to have the instinct of each time going, oh, wait, do they want that? And you see that neurotypical humans, they do get stuck in these loops where they're like, unless you blah, 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 and the other person's like, no, unless you blah, blah. And sometimes both of them actually want it, but neither one wants to admit it. And sometimes they're just trying really hard to, appease the other person. But because in humanese, you don't just say things. So it's never clear between two neurotypicals when they're interacting, like what the other person wants. Because, you have to hide that. And so they go in this loop of, it's just so fucking stupid. We were going around doing introductions in this group 2 days ago, whatever, it doesn't matter. And we're going around in a circle. We get to somebody, they introduce themselves. A late person arrives, sits down right between the person who just introduced themselves and the next person. So I think the person finishes introducing themselves, the new person has arrived. And then for them, it's like this awkward moment. Well, it wasn't for the new person, because he's actually on the spectrum. But for the dude next to him, he was like, oh, now what do we do? Do you want to go or should I go? What the fuck are you doing? He just arrived, so he might not know what we're doing. So just either tell him what we're doing or just do it and then say, okay, and then, you can go next. What is it? What are all these questions for? Like, why would the new person, have a preference? Oh no, please don't skip me, and then come back to me immediately. What the fuck? But because humanese involves but except for in cases where you're angry, no direct communication of like, oh, let's do this, or this is what I want, or or whatever. On the smallest fucking things, they have to do this back and forth of, hey, whatever you want. And nobody's going to say what they want. They're just going to keep showing how willing they are to adapt to the other person. Now, will they be willing to adapt to a neurodivergent person who's like, hey, sometimes, because your shit isn't as simple as please and thank you like you think it is, so sometimes they will not be willing to adapt to that. Be like, oh, well, you saw the other videos.